Hey, welcome to another episode of Walk Worthy. I'm here with my friend David Marvin. David, you led at the porch for a hot minute.
Hot minute, man.
Yeah, and I love to see, man. You're at Prestonwood now, leading strong, and what's the cadence that you preach there?
Well, right now we just started a Sunday night service, which anybody that's in DFW should come to. So it's every week now, and then I'm teaching Sunday morning. This Sunday, there's so many. Prestonwood's a whole world that there's so much, so many platforms to teach at. So, in terms of Sunday, 1 to 2 Sundays a month. Yeah. Right now, every Sunday. But yeah, dude, we gotta have you out there, bro.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
pumped to be here, man.
Yeah. I love the fact that, we could talk about so many things, but I think for Walk Worthy, I think what would really benefit our audience is I think you have a lot of wisdom to give someone who maybe they're single and they're in the middle of walking in what does it look like to live a life worthy of the calling they received in Christ Jesus. That's the verse in which we get Walk Worthy from.
Love it.
Because Paul is saying, hey, in chapter 4, walk worthy of the calling received in Christ Jesus, but 27 times prior to that, he's like, well, the way in which you do that is you understand your identity is in Christ. Even though that I'm in Rome, I'm in a Roman prison, that's not who I am. I'm a bondservant of the Lord Jesus Christ. So this is who I am, and my identity is going to overflow of knowing whose I am. So to the singles in the house, saying, I know it's a troll, but I've got a guy that I block him and he just creates another account. Every day he posts, I'm not rich, so I can't have a wife like you. I'm like, I'm not rich either. But to the person, it's like, man, if I don't have a spouse, there must not be favor in my life. I must not be doing it right. And if I do have a relationship with Jesus, why am I still single?
Yeah.
And how am I supposed to do this?
Yeah.
I have these urges. I want connection. I want intimacy. Maybe I didn't do it right before I started following Jesus.
Yeah.
So how do we get on the right path, and what both wisdom and direction can you share?
Yeah. So like you said, my background was working with the young adults at the porch from 2009 to 2022. And so it is an issue that, man, I care a lot about because I think God cares a lot about it. I know we share that. And if you're single right now, according to the Bible, according to statistics, you're single for a season. Generally speaking, 80% of people still get married today. Why? It's moved back in terms of when they get married, but the vast majority of people, especially Christians, get married. And so biblically speaking, you're not just single for a season, you're single for a reason. And Paul in 1 Corinthians 7 talks about using this season to secure what he says is undistracted devotion to the Lord. That God uses the season of singleness for you to grow in your relationship with Jesus. We so often think of singleness as like the DMV. I don't know when the last time you went there, but you go in, you sit down, they give you a number, and you're just waiting, and you're sitting on that plastic chair, just trying to get out of there as soon as possible, hoping they're going to call your number so that you can then leave. And that's how people think about singleness. Like, I'm just waiting until finally my spouse shows up, and then life will begin. And that's not a biblical idea. Paul says season of singleness is one right now for you to secure, for you to run after Jesus wholeheartely and prioritize growing in your relationship, because who you are going to bring into marriage, you're becoming right now. And marriage doesn't, as both of us know, it doesn't fix anything.
Right.
If anything, it exposes a lot of things. And so the best gift that you can give to your future spouse is to prioritize walking deeply with Jesus right now. And that involves fighting for purity. The scriptures talk about how purity is something that you pursue, not because God's trying to rip you off, but to protect you as you bring that into marriage, to walk in community with other believers who help identify blind spots and to chase after. And not, I guess the biggest thing I'm saying is not buy into the lie that, hey, life doesn't begin until someday I get married. Yeah. And rather prioritize right now running after Jesus and growing in your relationship with him.
Yeah. So I got all my theological education from Liberty, and we do a lot of stuff at Liberty. Yeah. Just as an organization, and that idea of ring before spring. That idea of I'm at a Christian place. I'm a Christian person, and I'm pursuing a Christian calling, and whether it be I'm going into ministry or I just want to grow to be the best leader in Jesus' name that I can be. But there's this disappointment of man, if I'm not chosen or if I didn't discover anyone, there must be something intrinsically wrong with me. Or maybe God is overlooking me. What would you say to the person kind of feeling that? Like, it's not because I'm doing anything wrong necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm not living in sin,
Yeah.
but I'm just frustrated because I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I don't see God moving.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that idea of the lie that, hey, there's something insufficient or incomplete in me if I don't have a spouse yet.
Yeah.
And part of what you're saying, though, there could be areas of your character and life that God does want to grow.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're single necessarily because he's punishing you. Like all of life is a classroom that God is constantly teaching us and growing us. And there's areas of all of our characters still, even when you get married. One of the biggest classrooms I feel like you enter into is marriage and learning just the ways that you're selfish and prideful and need to grow. But in this season right now, the best mindset you can embrace is, God, I want to learn everything that you can. I want to take advantage of the fact that, I mean, you got 4 kids. I got 3 kids. Your ability to get on a plane and go to Uganda tomorrow is a lot more limited than the single adults that are at the porch right now.
Yeah.
I mean, their ability to serve and to show up and just the responsibility that you have as a father, even discretionary income. Like, I think about my single days, I'm like, man, I had so much time. Like, I was in a flag football league, and I could read whenever I wanted, and I could do whatever I wanted. And then you get married, and you trade the membership to flag football to an Arboretum membership, and now you're just caring and raising kids and changing diapers and doing homework. And so I think utilize this season and try to learn everything you can and grow in every way, and not buy the lie that just because somebody didn't ask you to marry them by the end of your junior or senior year, that there's something incomplete or insufficient, and rather utilize this season to grow and deepen in your walk with Jesus.
Yeah, and I think that same thinking can be on the other side of the coin, where I get married and maybe there is something broken within me, and I'm believing the lie that if I have the opportunity to get married, if I experience the gift of marriage, marriage will give me the gift of not dealing with what I'm struggling with, or it's going to mitigate whatever gap that I might feel. And to your point, well, it doesn't fix that. You actually end up superimposing that brokenness onto that person.
That's right.
And now that one flesh becomes very complicated.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I it's pretty interesting where I talk about how, well, you go into marriage, and if you have a biblical experience, right, where you haven't struggled with pornography, you haven't had sex before marriage, and you go into that marriage, well, God's intention is for you to go into sex without any premeditated, expectations.
Yeah, sure.
Where I'm in the dark and everything's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like whatever I experience is awesome, and it's just going to get more awesome. But the more I get familiar with the awesome. But when I have these these premeditated expectations about what it should be like, or what it was like, or what I saw it be like, and then I superimpose that onto my wife, all of a sudden that's really broken. And I know we both share an affinity for what God is doing through Forrest Frank, and I heard him share that on his wedding night, when they consummated their marriage, he tried something awkward with his wife, and his wife was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where did you learn that?" And he began to weep, and he said, "Porn. I know exactly where I learned that." And it's just that if you are experiencing that and then you bring that into marriage, well, it's not going to be a tool in your belt to use because you have a past experience or something that you learned online. It's going to be broken. So there's both ends of the spectrum.
Totally.
In that if it's something you think marriage is going to fix, it won't. And if it's something that you've been wrongly taught that's going to help you have sex in marriage better, it's actually poison. It's not beneficial.
Yeah, you're so right. I once heard a pastor say one of the dangers of pornography is that every time that you watch pornography, which is a part of my story for anybody listening, that I had, it wasn't until college that I really walked authentically and confessed to pornography being a part of my story. And I was a Christian and believer, but I once heard him say, And in my own experience, I would say it's true. Every time that you watch porn, you're entering into a classroom, another classroom.
Yeah.
And in that classroom, you're teaching yourself lessons that one woman is not enough.
Right.
A real woman is not enough.
Yeah.
That the expectations and even how yourself, you can begin to buy lies about yourself and what actual intimacy is, which are all lies.
Yeah.
As you know better than anybody in terms of that industry is built on lies.
Yeah.
And so anytime that you're training and equipping and marriage will bring to the forefront all the expectations or the wrong ways of thinking about intimacy and how it's really something there to serve, care for my wife, and what God's beautiful design for it is. My heart breaks, candidly, because we have an entire generation, not just through pornography, but like you said, God designed it to be entered into without all these other expectations or things that you've been taught from culture. And I think it's tragic and heartbreaking, as I think for our sons.
Yeah.
They're going to be raised and have been raised and live in a world that's really taken that from them. Not just through porn, but you can't drive down the highway without seeing a bikini image that 100 years ago, no one would have even been able to understand. They weren't introduced and just indoctrinated constantly with scantily clothed women or men.
Yeah.
And just the heartbreaking nature that's been taken away, the purity that is there culturally has been taken away. Not just through pornography, because you don't have to watch porn to still be exposed to Netflix, whatever show that is going to bombard you.
Yeah, I think we've completely lost the idea of modesty.
Yeah, totally. In fact, I was recently reading in it's so random, but it was on the history of the bikini. Do you know the history of this?
No.
Oh, dude, it's crazy.
I feel like I saw something about this, but go ahead, please teach us.
So the bikini was this item of clothing that I can't remember the name. It was a French guy, and it was right around the end of World War II. And at the time, they were testing the bombs, the nuclear bombs, on an island called Bikini Atoll. And he came up with the idea he was going to introduce into the fashion world, because at that time, swimsuits and bathing suits, it was a much more modest culture.
Yeah.
He was going to introduce the bikini, and he named it that because he said, like an atom is this tiny atom that's going to create this massive explosion. I mean, the tiniest thing in the universe is an atom, and yet when you divide it, it creates the biggest explosion known to man. Wow. I'm going to create the tiniest item of clothing that's going to be like a nuclear bomb in the fashion world. And the bikini took off. And it was so scandalous at the time, he couldn't get anyone to wear it. The normal fashion models wouldn't wear it. He had to hire prostitutes. And yet, in a very short amount of time, when you combine that with the sexual revolution that was taking place, all of a sudden, in 10 to 15 years, it went from no one would wear it to, quote, by the end of the 1970s, you were a square, which is the old way our parents would talk, if you weren't wearing a bikini.
Yeah.
And you just think of how fast that changed, and now it's all normal. And it's you and I both grew up where a two-piece or bikini or whatever, it's commonplace.
Yeah.
And just how quickly our society has moved and really taken away that purity. So as believers, how do we fight to maintain that and also protect our eyes and protect our values? And I'm not trying to shame bikinis. I'm more just giving some of the historical references that you can lose sight of on how immodest we've become and how quickly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's like when it's just, a little bit of yeast ruins the whole batch.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that compromise works. And compromise regarding our culture, I mean, you look at, there was pornography etched in caves in Mesopotamia, 2,000 plus years ago, and it's always been around. It's always been, part of the culture. But then you see pornography in magazines, and then you see it online, and all of a sudden it's just grown to this proportion where it's part of society. It's in this weird way where there's certain emojis that are just this emoji means sex, or this emoji means this, and it's weird because the culture is so seeped in it that it's contextualized. And my point in that is in somewhere between 1917 and 1923, soon after the release of the first silent film, within 6 months of that, the first porn silent film was released. Yeah, but here's the interesting, the name of the porn was Casting Couch. And the fact that you would know from context that the first porn being called Casting Couch, you would know that a casting couch was communicating a scenario where a girl would walk into a director's, office, and the director would say, "Well, if you want this part, you'll have sex with me." And they didn't need to explain that because it was already known. And I think that's just, this is 100 years ago.
Dude, that's crazy.
So we come to your point. So how do we get to a place where it's atypical for someone to work out in a public gym wearing a sports bra and basically underwear? Like, how do we get there? Well, to your point, it's this slow introduction of this new piece of clothing, and then there's this adaptation of culture. But as followers of Jesus, we can choose not to adapt ourselves to culture.
Yeah, totally. Man, that is crazy. I heard something recently. In fact, you may know all about this, about Hugh Hefner and the original sexual revolution that was built on the back of Alfred Kinsey. Do you talk about this?
Yeah. It's so funny. So we're talking about this now. This is literally the entire episode that's coming out this coming Monday.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Well, dude, then you could tell me, because I was researching for another message, and Kinsey, we know, he released this book on sexuality that I read. One historian said you could divide American history into two different categories: the day before and the day after Alfred Kinsey released this book on sexuality in the 1940s. And he said with the release of that, it's as though the world moved and would never be the same. And he released all these different stats and finding of sexuality and marriage in America. And he basically said, everyone is having homosexual relationships. Everyone is having, 1 in 10 people are having sex with animals, and just all these crazy things. America, it was a bestseller overnight because people were going, man, this is nuts. This is what the studies are finding, only to find out 10 years, 15 years later, all of it was a lie. The people that he used for the case study were all convicted. They were sexually criminal people, or the vast majority of them were. But anyways, before that came out and it was all defrauded, there was a young man who had entertained going into ministry. Did you talk about this with Hugh?
No.
Who had basically read that book, and he decided, man, everyone is lying, and everything that I've believed about people around us is not true, and so I'm going to be the pamphleteer, is what he called himself, for Kinsey's work. And his name was Hugh Hefner.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know.
He was a virgin at the time that he launched Playboy. And of course, that very quickly changed. But he decided, if this is what America wants, despite the fact that it was all a lie, that was not really what was true about Americans, but if this is what America wants, I'm going to launch. And that's where the pornography really ratcheted up. I didn't know it was around even in the 1920s. But you think of just the explosion that happened after that, and then birth control. And
well, yeah, because what Hugh Hefner did was he made it like societally not even acceptable, but cool.
Yeah.
Because of the people he would have in the magazine and the way the magazine was advertised, and just it was, going back to even 10, 15 years ago, people still like, when they would go to the tanning bed, like the Playboy bunny and stuff like that, all of a sudden it became this like weird part of culture. Yeah. That seemed, we would never allow this into our homes and into, our magazine stores, and all of a sudden now it's, it's a staple of some kind.
Man, it's really, I was thinking about this recently, the power of marketing. And what he did was really the power of marketing there, and how many satanic movements are connected to amazing marketing that Satan parades as an angel of light. Like he's a genius marketer, and how many different movements, when you see them, how well they're crafted. Still today, we see in culture that the euphemisms that people will use for things, and the way that you can get society to accept certain things based on how you market it or talk about it,
or manipulate the language.
Exactly.
Because if you manipulate the language, it will sound less divisive and destructive.
Yes.
You look at abortion, that's true. You look at pornography, that's true.
Yes.
I think it's so interesting that I probably speak in 100+ churches a year about something to do with sexual ethic.
Yeah.
Even if that's not the topic, it's like, well, if you could at least just touch on that real quick.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I always say pornography. And pornography is a word that we get from porneia that comes out of the Greek New Testament that Paul used as hey, this is a junk drawer term for all things sexual morality. But I think even in saying where it's like, okay, we're trying to adhere towards the algorithm, which I can appreciate, but if I'm trying to adhere my language to be less abrasive to kids or to someone else, and I say the adult film industry, what am I saying? Am I saying that this is something that when you're at the appropriate age, this is something that is good for you? Is this what adults do?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we're trying to, be respectful or careful with ears, I think by not saying, like when we talk to our kids, it's like, I can't beat around the bush about like, this is what your genitalia is called, and this is what sex is, and there's
Totally.
no stork, and I think by either withholding what I need to say, because when I don't say anything, that communicates an even more
Sure,
loud, confusing message. But if I try to minimize my language or be vague, I'm just being confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And culture's not confusing. They're very clear
Yeah,
about what they're
preach.
advocating for. So I think sometimes in trying to be helpful and not hurtful, we actually do what we're trying not to do by not saying what we actually need to say.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and very commonplace, and in Christian circles, and I mean, it when you're raising kids, you're confronted with, oh, we got to talk about this, and lean in and be direct.
Yeah.
And this is how a baby is made, and
Yeah.
this is the gift that God has given us
Yeah.
between His design and union coming together, and
Yeah.
that's wild, man.
That's what I always tell people. It's like, man, like God doesn't think sex is weird. Sex is not weird. It's His idea. He called it good. You're weird.
Yeah.
You're weird. So when you be weird about sex, it makes it seem that it's weird. So
Yeah.
stop being weird.
Yeah,
It's always
that's good, man. It's true, bro.
that's why I always want to when I'm talking to parents, it's like you feel like, well, are my kids ready? Like you're not ready.
Yeah.
It's like you're uncomfortable, and that's okay.
yeah.
Because like when you don't have a competence about something, you often lack a confidence in talking about
Yeah.
it, and that's okay. But do some research. You have a conversation with someone, and then have the conversation. But don't beat around the bush. Don't say weird stuff, because the more that you're weird about it, they're gonna feel uncomfortable, and then when something happens, the likelihood of them coming to you and saying, hey, I was shown this, or I saw this, or this happened to me, there's this shame narrative that they're going to tell themselves.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
the likelihood of them saying what they need to say to you is now minimized because you were not willing to do the uncomfortable thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good, man.
A little bit of shift, if it's okay with you.
Totally.
So something that I feel like God has blessed me with is the superpower of vulnerability and just hurting out loud. And I think, man, maybe this can be a counseling session from you to me. But, over the last 12 months, Hope and I, we miscarried twice.
Oh.
She was 9 weeks and 13 weeks. And the 13 weeks, it hurt different. We this was about 3 months ago. We Hope wasn't feeling well. We thought something was wrong with her. We go to an ER. They do a really quick ultrasound. We don't get to see the imagery. All of a sudden, we're sitting in this this room. She's in a gown, and we're sitting there, and we're just thinking something's wrong with her. No clue. Like making jokes, And this guy in a mask comes in with some paperwork and says, there's been no heartbeat for the last 2 weeks. Oh. And you would need to make a follow-up, with your gynecologist or your pediatrician. OB. You need to go back to your OB and I think, man, I tried to be really strong in that, and it was discombobulating, and then some time went by, and Hope was like, I just want to see the imagery, because we were going to do a home birth, so we hadn't had an ultrasound at all, so we hadn't seen any imagery of the baby. And we call the hospital, and they're like, yeah, we can send it to you. So they send us this like CD, and we're like, what are we gonna do with this? And we order something off of Amazon to like hook up to my computer.
Wow.
And we finally get it pulled up. And at this point, it had been about a week. And Hope was emotionally, rightfully struggling.
Yeah.
But I was like trying to be there for her, trying to say the right things to her and our kids. And I saw that imagery of that child, and knowing that that was my child and that child didn't have a heartbeat, it leveled me. And there was a few days that I just wasn't okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think because I know you and your wife have experienced significant loss, I think pain can either put you on one trajectory or another, because God has a plan for your pain, and Satan has a plan for your pain.
Yeah.
Satan's plan is for you to suppress it, for you to superimpose it onto your kids, your spouse, for you to be indecisive, for you to be passive, for you to lean towards sin for comfort. But God, he wants to comfort you, and he doesn't want you not to hurt, but he wants to make the hurt different. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, and I leaned on a few people, and Hope and I saw over the next few weeks, we just really leaned into, we're going through a devotional together, we're praying together, we're doing a reading together, and God's word came alive in a way that it hadn't in a while.
Yeah. And
God's voice that kind of seemed not distant, but at times we're trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do with the family? Because I travel and speak itinerantly. Predominantly, that's my vocation. We could do anything, kind of live anywhere. Like, God, what is it that you want us to do? And all of a sudden, the discontentment or the impatientness or the God, like, what is it that you want us to do? All of a sudden, his voice became really, really clear, and we just saw God move. And there's so many people that I've experienced that are on this podcast, and just I connect on a daily basis. Whatever habitual sin that you're stuck in, it's not that you woke up one day, it's like 10-year porn addiction, please. Whatever it might be. You're trying to mask what you don't want to feel. You're trying to find comfort in a life that you feel you've done too much, you've gone too far, or something was done to you. You're just trying to navigate this. But pain has actually pushed you into this place that you feel like you can't get out of. Would you minister to us in that way? What wisdom, would you share to someone that maybe is like Hope and I? We've experienced something dramatically painful.
Yeah.
And that pain didn't say, okay, well, we're not going to pretend like, every time her period's coming up, she's taking a bunch of pregnancy tests and hoping, and it just becomes something that's so overwhelming. We're not going to live in that. We're going to hope for the best, but we're going to trust God. But we're not going to pretend like we don't hurt.
Yeah.
I love the way Levi Lesko talks about grief. It's evidence of love that you had. What would you say to me? What do you say to the person that's been pushed in this place they feel like they can't get out of because of something that it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily something they were pursuing or something they didn't see coming?
First I'd say to you, man, I'm really sorry, and to Hope. And in some ways, what you're talking about is the age-old problem of pain. And we lost a child 2 years ago in 2024, and man, God used that season, really changed our life in that season. And it was unbelievably painful and hard, harder than I thought. I mean, I'm a pastor and I've been in ministry for a long time. And as we walked through that pain, I feel like my understanding even of God and his character, and the number one thing I feel like that enlarged in my mind was God's compassion towards us. I remember talking with a friend, and because theologically you wrestle. If you've been in that season, you wrestle with like, why would God allow this? And what? I mean, I know the right answers, but it's you're heartbroken. And I remember saying something like, man, why would God want a baby? We had a child that was born that lived 100 minutes, full term, beautiful girl. And I remember talking with another pastor friend, a mutual friend of ours, and I was like, man, it's just sometimes I find myself wondering, God, why would you want that? And he said something that ministered to me in that moment. Where he's like, God doesn't want that.
Yeah.
God wants your daughter here with you.
Yeah.
Like God died for that.
Yeah.
God's heart is not that, and he's sovereign, and yes, all those things, but the heart of God, I mean, you think about the moment that both of us preached on of Jesus outside of the tomb of Lazarus, knowing he's about to raise this man from the dead, and he just starts weeping. I mean, the Greek word there is he's weeping, and you go, why? You know you're about to raise him from the dead. Why? Because his heart, I mean, Jesus is the only one in that environment that had ever known a world without brokenness and sin and death and pain. And despite the fact that he knows he's about to raise him, he knows it was never meant to be like this, and his heart just breaks. I was thinking this morning as I was driving up here, Jesus in Isaiah is called a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And that's written 700 years before Jesus shows up. You think of God is writing the resume of his son. And of all the things that he would have, a man of success, a man of purpose, a man of influence, that God would write a man of sorrows. And then you think of what is said in Hebrews, that he's one that is acquainted with us in all of our weaknesses, and he knows how to be compassionate high priest to us. And so, one, I would push somebody towards, I would encourage them to process their pain from like a practical thing. For me, it's easy to stuff, so I have to be intentional. Counseling was really helpful for me in that, of being intentional to lean in and process, because I could find myself making excuses for God, because theologically, as a thinker, I'm like, well, he's sovereign, and he knows it, and he loves us, and he's going to work all things together for good, and not giving myself the freedom to go, man, this really is hard, and doesn't feel fair, and doesn't feel right, and just vomit. Like, that's what the Psalms are.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if you're talking about JP, but JP he said something to my wife and I that it's almost he encouraged me. It's like, man, don't use a theological Band-Aid to cover up pain that you actually feel.
That's right.
Because Satan, is the causation of sin. Mm-hmm. So if sin, general sin, is the causation for us losing that child, well, God didn't want that, and He's not, off put or offended by my anger, my frustration, my disappointment. So I think that's so important, especially for men. I think a little easier if you have a community, if you are a follower of Jesus and you have a community. If you're a woman, generally those conversations happen a little easier. But for men, for some reason, we believe this lie that we need to pretend like we're okay when we're not, and that's something that is indicative of me being masculine, and that's a lie from Satan, that we need to not externally process real pain that we're feeling inside, because that is an input. It's going to become an output in some way, shape, or form. But I didn't want to stop you there, but I just wanted to kind of
no, it's good, man.
Kind of invite someone into that.
Yeah.
If you're someone that hasn't sat down with a counselor or sat down with someone that loves Jesus and loves you and say it all, like not 90% of it, not, because sometimes we'll even in our confessions, regardless if it's confessing sin or just talking about, man, this is something that's hard that I'm walking through.
Yeah.
We will try to shape the story in a way where I look a certain way, or I'm resilient in a certain way, where it's just like, no, man, I'm actually pretty lost and hopeless and broken, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, dude. Somebody asked this week at our church. It's a really funny question because they were asking. I could tell they had recently walked through something painful.
Yeah.
And because they asked, "Hey, can I get time together? I'd love to basically talk about the problem of evil and pain and hurt and why horrific things happen to people." And I remember sitting with them, and generally speaking, we want. There's two ways to answer that question. There's the problem of pain, which is like the cerebral, there's an answer.
Sure.
But when you're walking through loss of a child, when you're walking through miscarriage or loss of a spouse, anything, the theological articulation is not really helpful. Right. It doesn't make it go away. I could give you a theological answer on why a miscarriage could happen, and God is still good, and He still is mine.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that pain go away.
Yeah, I can say that, I'll hold that child in heaven, and I believe that.
Totally.
But that doesn't negate my hurt.
Yeah, and most often when you're in that moment, like this guy, I could tell he wanted an emotionally satisfactory answer to the problem of pain. And the problem is there's not an emotionally satisfying answer to the problem of pain. Yeah. So much so that Jesus was crucified. He came to earth. I mean, that's the whole reason why he came, because he wasn't okay with it, in other words. It broke the heart of God, and so much so that I'm going to be crucified because I'm not okay, emotionally speaking, with the problem of evil and suffering and miscarriages and all that pain. And the answer, there is no, in other words, another way of putting it, there's no theological answer that I could give you right now or that would satisfactorily answer the emotional problem to make you walk out of here and go, I'm okay with a miscarriage now.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't feel pain over that.
Right.
And you shouldn't. There isn't an answer.
Yeah.
And so often we think that there would be, or if I just had more faith, then I would be okay with it, or suffering, or child abuse, or anything. And that's just not biblically true. And so giving your spouse the space to grieve, and it's okay to not be okay. In some ways, it's a beautiful gift. How tragic would it be if you and Hope lost a child and you weren't heartbroken over that? I can't remember the quote you're talking about. Is it that it is love that has no place to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. That how tragic would it be if you had that love and you weren't sad over the fact that you were grieving your own baby. Right. And so, I mean, everything that we hit on, those aren't just words. They really are true of talking and processing and giving yourself grace and being patient. I don't know if this is just unique to us. For 6 months afterwards, it was probably the hardest season I've ever walked through. And all the theological truths, like we're going to hold them in heaven, and those felt like salt in the wound. Yeah. Like just a reminder that, oh, she's not here. Yeah. And but eventually, through processing, and I'm a slow learner, so maybe that's why it took so long. God began to heal some of those. It never fully goes away. You probably for the rest of your life grieve, loss of a child. Yeah. But in some ways, God meets you there, and I do think His purpose for our pain, because Satan wants to isolate, he wants us to stuff, he wants to use it to deter and destroy relationships. I do think that when you allow God to bring healing to those things, even small degrees of healing, He wants to use it as a part of our story, which is why in 2 Corinthians 1, he says, God wants to comfort you with the comfort, or use you to comfort others with the comfort which He has comforted you, which another way of putting that is He wants to take that plane and use it and put purpose for it to be a platform to care for other people. Yeah. That for the rest of your life, I know this is certainly true for me, your compassion for somebody miscarrying, I bet is infinitely deeper than it was before. Even though I know you were very compassionate to somebody beforehand. Right. But now you just feel it in a way that's just so much deeper. And
I think even, it's like the way that Satan wants to twist everything, it just makes me think about, man, when you were going through that, like it may have been the same month, same season, but we had a child, and you guys lost a child. And I typed out a text to you. I don't know why it's making me emotional. I typed out a text to you probably 50 times, and I couldn't send it because I felt guilty. And I think that there's, because I love you and I care for you, and I wanted to let you know that our family was praying for you. And I think there's so many things in our life that God puts something good there, and then Satan wants to counterfeit it or twist it. And it's like, man, I love the way that, I forget, maybe it was Jefferson.
Nephi, yeah.
No, he talks about communication a lot. But it's just like, man, if you want to do something for someone, just do it. You know, like don't say, man, can I do anything for you and your family? Just do it.
Yeah.
Just send the meal, send the text, show up, cut the yard, you know, whatever it is. And I think there's just so many times in our life where we will allow Satan into places that he just doesn't belong into. And I think it's kind of where I'm going with this. Is this idea of where instead of speaking truth over yourself, you will listen to this internal voice that is not you and it's not God. And it will take you into this place that you feel like, man, is this true? Is this God? Did I mess up? And that's kind of where, like, Hope and I kept drifting back and forth to until we just planted our feet. Where Hope was like, you know, was I taking my prenatals? You know, did I exercise too hard? You know, should we have gone on that trip? You know, and like so on and so on. And it's just we have to remember that Satan is the father of lies, and when he lies, he speaks his own language. And sometimes we just need to tell him to shut up.
Yeah, totally, man.
And yeah, I'm not sure exactly why I shared that with you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I think it reflects when you're in that situation or walking alongside. I remember feeling, because I think your son was born in January. Or right around there, which is when our daughter was born.
So January 6th.
Or crazy. I mean, ours was the 11th. And
I'm sorry. His birthday's actually the 12th. Hope's is the 6th.
Oh, a day before. Ours was born yours. And I remember, because you weren't the only one, we had other friends that were having babies. And I remember feeling almost like a shame or embarrassment that I didn't want people to feel bad, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want you to feel like you can't text. And at the same time, it would be crazy if I didn't say, we have another friend who had a baby literally the month after. And there are times, and dear friends who we love, there are times I see that baby and it could just bring me to tears, because I think, man, that's what our daughter, she'd be walking right now, or she would be doing that. And so I think the beauty of the body of Christ is when we can allow truth to come through, because as crazy as it is for you to feel bad about sending a text, it's equally as crazy for me to feel bad that I don't want them to feel bad, you know? And for us to both push those aside and go, man, I know it's hard, and I'm really sorry. And for me to be able to go, dude, I love that you have a fourth boy. Like, that's awesome. And God gives you more. And so.
I think it's just, I guess my point ultimately, in that regardless of where you are, or regardless of what you're walking through, there is this internal dialogue that, you know, you are your worst critic. And the Bible tells us that, you know, man is not meant to be alone. And I think that if we're alone in our thoughts, it's a dangerous place to be. So whatever it is that you're navigating, whether it be pornography or pain, or even, man, I'm excited about something that I feel super unqualified for, and I feel like I can't even say it out loud, because who am I to even want that? Or what if it doesn't happen? I think there's so many times in our life where we just need to invite people in. And in closing, would you just talk about why it's so important for people to have community, for us to have someone that we can pick up the phone and say exactly what's going on, and us receive what they say, whether it stings or not?
Well, I think everything you just said is why. Because, I mean, to use your example of something I'm excited about, but I'm afraid it wouldn't happen, and then if it doesn't happen, and then you're grieving it all alone.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where Satan wants you to. I mean, one of the reasons I think it's good to bring others in whenever you're comfortable in a pregnancy, to use that example, is, and a lot of couples will wait until we're past the first trimester and say, and my experience has always been, man, as soon as you and your wife are united and comfortable, bring others in, because Lord forbid anything happen. And then not only are you, then you're walking that alone,
Yeah.
and no one even knew to grieve.
Yeah.
And so many couples walk that road alone, and whether it's miscarriage or whether it's loss of a job or parent or any of those things, we weren't made to be isolated and to carry. This is why Paul says in Galatians 6, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. But one of the commands and one of the ways that some things are just too heavy to carry alone.
Yeah.
As strong and as faithful as you are, carrying a miscarriage it can crush you.
Yeah.
Carrying a loss of anything, a wife that gets stage 4 cancer, you just weren't made to carry that alone. And so having other believers in your life, and sadly, most people wait until it's too late, and then they haven't spent the days where things aren't painful, so there's ever a time that's true, but they haven't cultivated those relationships, and then they find themselves and they're walking through it alone because they haven't invested. So being a part of a local church, investing in relationships, and getting other people around you and in your life that you can be honest with to help carry those burdens.
Yeah, that's right. I always, specifically to men, I think this is true for women. I say you need a Proverbs 27:6 friend. You need someone that you would willingly accept the wounds of a friend from. Because if you don't have that person, if you don't, I always tell people you need a local church, a group, and a person, at least a person. Some people, they'll have more, but if you don't have that, there's going to be something that you're walking through that, man, you need not just like external guidance that, maybe, if I tell you what's going on, you can kind of, if you know the intricacies of my life, my wins, my losses, my, whatever I'm, moving towards in the wrong way, whatever it is, the intricacies of me. When I tell you something, you can give me a contextualized answer that a stranger can't.
Totally.
And that's the point. That's the point. That's what God is pushing us towards over and over and over again. So we talk about accountability a lot, and it's great to keep you on track, to not do the thing you ought not do. But it's so much bigger than that.
So much bigger, man. And the encouragement and prayer, and just a place where it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And that they care about you.
Yeah.
We honestly probably, and this is a funny thing to end on, I at least think I could do a better job of talking about that. Because I do think we do, at least in my church experience, a pretty good job of accountability.
Yeah.
And walking authentically.
Yeah.
And I probably could do a better job of encouraging just the care aspect of coming alongside and I'm really sorry, and just walking with somebody as they walk through the pain and the valley of the shadow of death. And but man, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Very.
It's awesome,
Appreciate you,
dude.
man.
Man, thanks, bro. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.